Hello there, my friends, and welcome to Dragon's Teacast. This episode will be talking about what happened with trying to open up the Teashop 2 years ago. The quality might be a little bit different because I'm using a different mic in a different location, and I don't know how many takes it's gonna take for me to get everything, so quality might change from time to time as I switch mics, switch places, etc. I have several goals with making this, one of which being to inform people who have been waiting for such a long time now to get a physical shop, what happened, where we are now, where we're going, on and on. The other thing I want to do is I want to talk about this also in a business perspective, so future prospectors who want to get into any type of field, especially in Illinois, can get an idea of what to expect of all of the, I don't know what the right word is, keeping it family friendly, incessant bullcrap that you have to deal with whenever you want to get anything accomplished. It was very difficult to determine where I should begin with this, because there's so much that goes into everything that happened. I suppose the first place I should begin with is explaining a little bit the distinction between the Teashop and myself. Ideally, my main goal for this is to have the Dragon's Treasure be its own thing, separate from who I am. Right now I'm spearheading the whole thing, running in Dragon's Treasure, buying everything, etc., etc. There should always be somebody in the front to do all that stuff, yes. But for me, Dragon's Treasure is an idea. An all-encompassing idea that, in the future, will cover a lot more than it is right now, to put it mildly. But everyone's got to start somewhere. And so right now, the T-Man is essentially the face of everything. And I would like the T-Man to be more of an honorary title as opposed to something that's just me hanging on to it. It's kind of difficult to explain, but yeah, try my best. So with that being said, since at the moment it's just me running pretty much everything, some idea of how I operate should be known, so you have an idea of why I do the certain things I do, and why I took certain courses of action, and it'll hopefully paint the picture I'm trying to paint. The first thing to know about me is that I am unreasonably stubborn, and honestly, I owe most of my successes to that unreasonable stubbornness. When it's come to any job I've had in the past, well, most of them, I've always had the mindset of, just tell me what to do, get out of my way, and it's going to get done. You might have a specific way you want the task to be completed. That does not mean I'm going to do that specific way, but it'll still get done. The important part of all that being, so long as you get out of my way. That's gonna come into play real soon. The second thing you should know is that no matter what it might be, it could be something as simple and innocuous as a video game, or something as important as running an entire business. I run into certain phases. Early game, mid-game, late game. To use non-gaming terminology, it's pretty much the same thing. In the beginning, in the middle of what I'm doing, and the end goals. No matter what it is, in the beginning, the early game, I am absolutely terrible at it. Mind-numbingly terrible. It is something which people sometimes look upon in awe of just how bad I am in the start of something. And I acknowledge that, and I'm completely okay with it. Because really, for me all that matters is the end game. And I always say, if I can survive the early game, the mid game is where things mostly get decided. If I get to the end game, it's done. I will control everything. I will have the strongest power, if we're speaking in video game terms. Everything will be set and nothing can stand in my way. That, in a nutshell, is how I tend to do things. Early game bad, middle game is where I not where I shine the most, but where things really get made. End game, it's done. The same thing applies to this business. And for me, what would have been the start of the mid-game was opening up the Teashop. To those who are listening to the Origins podcast, where I talked a little bit about how everything began, you know that it was an extremely rough start. I had very little income that I began with, minimal support for the idea, and the first few months were kinda rough. Barely made any money, really. Everything changed after I went to the first convention, the Houston Tea Festival. Which comes back around to what I said in the Origins podcast. I am terrible at marketing. Pretty much the only way I work is just try my stuff and you'll be sold. Get me in front of the people, I can show what I have, and things will just work out from there. Because I have plenty of confidence in the products I have. And I proved that. And I prove it pretty much every single convention I go to. Conventions is where I make the most money out of anywhere. And that's one of the reasons why I knew things were going to be plenty okay after I opened up the Teashop. Because now I have this nice, giant store that I can point to with my logo and everything saying, hey, this is my shop. Come on by. People are a little bit wary of buying, not tea specifically, but anime-themed teas from an online retailer because it does not look as clean-cut and as professional, quote-unquote, as some other generic tea shop. One of the things I've learned is that there's certain goals you want to try and hit to basically appear more professional in the eyes of other people. For example, once my Facebook page hit over 1,000 likes, I noticed that the amount of likes I got were increasing dramatically. There was a lot more engagement. There was something about having that extra digit in that number that made me seem more authentic to people. Versus when I only had, let's say, 400 people. Yeah, I noticed a lot less people really cared. Especially when I shared to other groups. I'm guessing they probably checked out the page, so, oh, a page with 400 likes, that's probably not important. But a page with over 1,000 likes, okay, that's a little bit better. Hopefully at some point I'll get that 10,000 likes. Well, let me rephrase that. At some point I will get that 10,000 likes. I'll see more professional, and on it goes. And so a physical store is one of those, probably the biggest milestone I would have. There might be bigger things, but in terms of importance, that is the one that takes the cake. I've been in other stores before. There was a coffee shop in Mount Prospect. I had some teas stationed. There was a store in Chicago, a bookstore which had some of my teas. There was that whole fiasco with the collective, but let's not go into that. Let's just say I was very thankful they ended up canceling my contract over stupidity, to put it mildly. But my own store would be my store. So one of the things I mentioned in the Origins podcast is this idea came about in 2011. And I was still a starry-eyed 20-year-old. 21, 22, between 20 and 22. I've lost counts, I'm old. But yeah, back then, there was a specific storefront, a specific location in Arlington Heights, Illinois that I was looking at that I wanted to open up shop. And I kept my eye on that for a long time, as you can tell. But back then, with even less money than I had when I reopened in 2015, I thought, I'll find a way to get somebody to fund me. I probably thought like $10,000, I'll be good. I can take things from there. Like I said, I'm reasonably stubborn. Okay, now, something else to keep in mind about all this is my own personal mood. I was ecstatic. Things were finally moving in a good direction. I have been in let's say the early years of any business is going to be difficult. Mine was exceptionally so for a variety of reasons. Reasons I don't need to really go into. Just take my word for it, things sucked. And this was a beautiful light at the end of the tunnel. It did not mean all my problems were going to go away. Problems never go away, but the problems were going to be ones that I was happy to deal with. Like, how am I going to do the tea store? Am I going to have every single thing right at the beginning? Or am I going to have to take some things away and then later on build upon them? Those are nice problems to have. I think everyone can agree with that. And so what I felt when I was walking through the buildings I was checking out, especially the first one, where the seats were going to be, all the fun things I was going to do, it was such a good, ecstatic feeling. It's one of those feelings where, I don't want to get too philosophical, but let's say for now there's two different types of happiness. A shallow one and a deep one. Certain types of shallow happiness might get those endorphins flowing really strongly. I get those a lot when, let's say, I play a video game. Let's say it's something that's really close, and it's all back and forth, and I won at the end, fantastic, I feel good, I am smiling. Yeah, but after about a week, I don't really care. I've either forgotten about it, or the feeling is not really there, I can't really use it. Versus some of those life moments where, even if the endorphin rush is not as much, it's a type of happiness that just sticks with you. One that you can think back to, and you get that warm feeling inside of your guts, and your physiology almost changes just from thinking about those moments. That's what it was like for me. With that being said, let's jump into the first form of problems I had. So, fun little fact. In Illinois, and I'm sure other states as well, maybe it's a federal thing, I forget. but at the very least in Illinois, that if you don't live in Illinois, you gotta realize that Illinois despises the very concept of business. I don't want to get political, but I'll just drop it. So let's get back to something happy, and by something happy, I mean something not happy. Tea has to be classified as a food and beverage, which means all of the rules, laws, regulations that go with any other type of food must be applied to tea. I thought I could circumnavigate this by not actually serving any food and just serving the tea. As it turns out, no. So that was the first huge slap in the face, and really, it was the very core of everything that went wrong. These needless regulations. I had to be classified as a restaurant. So every little thing that a restaurant needs to have, I needed to have as well, despite my plans for not having a single piece of food that I made. I would have allowed people to bring food from the outside, or I would have gotten, I don't know, things like chips and whatnot. No, not something unhealthy like that, but some type of food what I buy from the outside, you open it and eat it, where any other store can do that and not run into any issues. But as it turns out, I could not get away with that. Some of the items I was going to be required to have. A grease trap. Why would a tea shop need a grease trap, you ask? Fantastic question. One that does not get to be answered. A ventilation system. Kitchen flooring. The one that really killed me, 2 ADA compliance bathrooms. The initial place I was looking at, and really every single other place, except maybe 1 or 2, had the issue of having only 1 bathroom that may or may not have been ADA compliant. Which means if I wanted to get that place, I would have had to build a whole nother bathroom, which again takes away from the square footing. Again, this goes back to one of those things where I have to sacrifice some things. Ideally, if I had an endless amount of money, sure, 2 ADA compliant bathrooms, no problem. But I didn't. I only had what I had with me. Would there have been issues with only 1 bathroom? Sure, I don't view them as game-changing problems, but they're problems. Something I would have lived with. No, according to the state, to add a whole nother bathroom would have been at minimum $10,000, which would have been a sizable chunk of the money I had that was going to go into everything else. To remodel the other bathroom was going to be another couple of grand. This is not cheap stuff. Also doesn't help that I can't really build anything, so it's gonna be one of those things where I have to hire from the outside. The coordinator that helped me out said I should look into an architect, and gave me a list of a few people, and I finally found, well, technically 2. I found one group, but because of issues of me not having everything already set, I couldn't work with them. They didn't do anything wrong, I didn't do anything wrong. It was just yeah, I'm a little bit too novice for you guys, and you guys are just way too busy for me. No issue whatsoever. Second guys were a little bit smaller, but still plenty great help. So ultimately, because of this, I did not know what I wanted to do. The first place I was looking at was just not going to work. When we expanded the first bathroom and added in the second one, there was not going to be as much room left over. It was just going to be too small. So we moved on to another place that was pretty much right next door. This place was beat up. Like you would not believe. The floor was not even there. Walls were a mess. The ceiling would have needed work. Electrical system was going to need work as well. But it was a nice, giant, open box that I could have made work. So I tried giving that place a shot. But again, running into the same problems, especially with that freaking grease trap. There was nothing I could have done to get around it. I spoke with the owner of a juice place that was right next door to us. That was going to be right next door to us. I'm still speaking as if I actually have the shop. I do that sometimes. And she talked about her problems where she had to deal with the same thing, even though all she made was smoothies. She said that for her to get a grease trap installed, one that they don't use, because of the way the building was laid out and the type of concrete that was used, it cost over $30,000 to actually install this freaking grease trap for them. For that amount of money, that was going to basically end it right there. There was nothing I could really do about it. If I had to spend $30,000 on just a grease trap that I was not going to use, this was not going to happen. So we had to move on. Checked out a few other places, didn't really feel it. Same problems as before. finally we came across this one other building that was right next to that place I was speaking about in 2011 that I was looking at. Right to the right of it. Yes. I could not see inside because there was a giant wall on the inside that actually blocked it out. It used to belong to a yoga studio. Speaking with the landowners of the place, they suggested it. And I said, I don't know, but I'll go ahead and just take a look. I looked on the other side of the wall, and it was beautiful. It was nearly perfect. It even already had a room built for the manga corner. So that huge amount of work I was going to have to go into building another room, all taken care of. It even had 2 bathrooms. It was set. Oh, fantastic. Still have to deal with the grease trap problem, but because of this floor, it looked like it could be taken care of. Ventilation system, perfect. This is actually a perfect way to segue into another reason why I hate Chicago for what it's done to all of Illinois. As I managed to find out, because throughout all of this, I was also sending messages to the city saying, is there anything you can do for me? Any way we can work this out so you don't make me a restaurant? Some type of waiver or something? And finally I got back a reply from somebody saying, well, we should be able to sign a waiver for the ventilation system. Excuse me? So you can sign waivers for stuff? Oh yeah, sure. Well, excuse me? So why not sign a waiver for all the stuff I'm not going to need? Well, chimes in random person on the other side of the emails. We could do that, but what if you decided to become a full-fledged restaurant down the line? Well, shit, son. If I decided to do that, my entire practice in the business would change, wouldn't it? And you guys, basically holding my balls in a vice grip right now, could very easily twist and squeeze and take more money out of me in the forms of fines, penalties, something. I will sign a waiver saying you can take my firstborn child if I decide to make this a fully fledged restaurant that needs a grease trap. How about that? But no, they don't want to take the risk. What if I became a restaurant down the line? What if I wanted to become an auto repair shop down the line as well? Do I need to install a giant garage so I can fit the cars in? How far ahead are we looking here? Because, part of my language, fucking bullshit. You would hold me back from opening up this business, which is gonna make you a shit ton of money no less, because of this random what if. What if I decided to become something I'm actually not? Well, what a philosophical problem we have here, huh? I sound pissed now. You should have seen me that day when I figured out what was going on with this waiver crap. Ooh, I was mad. I was really mad. At this point, it's at least a month in. Time is a-wasting. There is a deadline for all of these bills that I've got. You know, I'm paying people, doing all of this scouting, etc., etc. And you're telling me that you could just sign a couple of pieces of paper and get me opened up, and you're deciding not to based on a meaningless what if. Meanwhile, back at the plot, so I've got a new place with a vision, and things seemed to work. This place was beautiful. It was left completely intact. The floors was something I was going to be happy with. It had good lighting, though I would need to upgrade it a little bit. Probably have to upgrade electrical a little bit. Add some plumbing so we can have some water going to wet out Envision T-bar. What was it? It was, I think, 1,200 square feet, which is 400 smaller than my ideal, but just big enough for me to be able to make it work. So at that point, I called in Keith, the architect. I said, all right, start taking your pictures and doing your measurements, making this shit happen. He even had a small closet I could turn into a, that's another thing. I specifically need a closet to hold a mop bucket and a little mini sink to wash it out. Obviously, I'm not opposed to having a mop bucket, but required me to have a specific closet dedicated just to that. Thanks, guys. I can't just keep it in the bathroom or anything. I forgot to mention one of the bathrooms was going to be employee-only bathroom, which that was allowed. This place also left behind a couple of cabinets I could have used, which would have saved me money on furniture and whatnot. So many good things were running with this. So, I paid Keith a good amount of money to do the work he was supposed to do. That was going good. And we began to do some work. All this time, the actual landowner of this building, he actually lived in Florida, and I was speaking mainly to a middleman. The building we're speaking of has been vacant for years at this point. Nobody has taken it up. It is just dead weight, costing him money. And here I come, ready to give him some money. Another month goes by, making more plans, more progress, advertising, opening up the GoFundMe, and finally it came time to put pen to paper and sign the lease. I gave him my information, my credit score, which again at this point is still like 780. That is crazy high. How much money I had, how much money the loan was, collateral, all of that information. I still remember the day I got the email. It was a Friday night, driving for Uber and Lyft. Several days have passed. Friday is one of the busiest nights for that. Around 7 o'clock, I got the email, and I see it pop up on my phone. After I drop off whoever I had with me, I turn Uber off, pull over to the side, open up the email, and read. And I was told that the landowner did not want to go through with everything. A month has passed. I paid a lot of money. At this point, I'm fairly certain by this point is when I bought a lot of the furniture that was going to go everywhere. Display tables and whatnot. What else? I can't remember everything, but I spent a good amount of money on the furniture we were going to use that was now being held in a giant storage locker that was costing me over $100 a month. And I was told that he would not sign the lease because he did not feel comfortable with what I was going to be selling, how much money I had, if it was going to end up working out. I should have kind of seen this because the middleman kind of warned me that the landowner was a really old guy. He's been doing this for over 50 years. And when it comes to something like tea and anime, he doesn't know anything about it. Apparently there's some issues in Illinois with it being really difficult to evict a business that doesn't want to pay rent. And so the landlord did not want to take any chances with that. On my end, it was my fault entirely for being so giddy and starry-eyed, starting off all of this work, buying the furniture, doing all of this stuff before the lease was actually signed. At this point, I just had promises and whatnot, and I thought that was going to be enough. Lesson learned, to put it mildly. So what happened after that? I sent back another email. I forgot what I said, but it was a desperate plea of, "Are you shitting me? What do I have to do? What does he want?" That's what I found out, that if I offered $40,000 to $60,000 up front, which is going to be most of the 3-year lease, then things would go smoothly from there. I could be a multi-billion-dollar international industry that has buildings all over the globe, as well known as Amazon, as Walmart, as any other giant business we have now. And if I was given that same deal, I would still not take it. Because who the hell is going to pay most of the 3-year lease up front in order to be able to open up shop? That was insane. I feel like I got hosed. A large part of that is my fault. I know. But the little part of it is that landowner's fault. Thanks, Dick. This could have gone many different ways. But you didn't want it to, I guess. So I sat there in the car. That deep feeling in the gut that you get whenever you receive really bad news or know something really bad just happened. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Did I want to keep driving? Would I want to go home and collect myself? I think I tried to keep on driving. After a little bit, I just turned Uber off and just went home and internally panicked. Not sure what I wanted to do. What can I do? I didn't have the money to pay all that up front, let alone the willingness. I got all this furniture, I put the architects to work, got some nice little blueprints laid out for the place. What am I gonna do? I'm still losing a lot of money. The deadline is drawing ever closer. I already taken pictures, I already made the announcement. Hey, we're getting the physical store, everybody. Hooray! I was in a bad spot, in more than one way. I had also purchased enough stuff, well, not enough stuff, but I began the process of purchasing stuff, so when the store opened, we would have actual items to stock things up with. That was during the time of whoever has followed us for a while remembers that our merchandise and our tea inventory increased exponentially. We got so many more things that, I don't remember how much money was involved, but it was over $10,000 at the end of the day, just on more items of that nature. So we got a lot. I think it was like 14,000 at the end of the day. I can't remember off the top of my head. So we'll just say for now, $10,000 here, $1,000 or so for the architects, over $1,000 for the furniture, $120 a month or something for the storage space. I think there was some other things I paid to the government for licensing or something, I forget. Money is starting to stack up, and the sales, actually, because of the buzz that the store began to make on the internet, I began to get a lot more sales, and the Facebook kind of, I wouldn't say blew up, but began getting a continuous notable amount of followers every single week. Looking at the amount of money I spent and doing the math for everything, I determined that if this store does not get opened up within the year, I am screwed. Screwed beyond any possible repair, any possible comeback. No good can happen to save me. I would have to probably close the store down or sell to somebody and just give it all up. Luckily, I'm still here, so it did not turn out like that, but that is how dire things seemed. So I had no choice but to try and find other places. Arlington Heights ended up sending me on some wild goose chases that honestly pissed me off a little bit, and I actually sent, I can't remember if it was passive-aggressive or overly aggressive emails back, because they recommended me some places to open up the shop, and I went to those places. It was graveyards. Pure strip mall graveyards. There was no business in whatsoever. There was not going to be any walk-in traffic. Terrible place for me to open anything up. I should look up the emails, but I think the basic replies was, is this a joke? So aside from the coordinator that I was working with, the rest of the city was useless to me. Finally, after scouting some more places, I found me another place. A 1,600 square foot, basically a giant box that also had a basement of the same size. I was able to speak with the landowners face to face. They seemed like really good people. They loved the idea of having a Teashop opened up. There was a few things left over that I could have made some new use for that expanded my vision of what the store could have been. Also found some good old-fashioned VHS pornos that I didn't know still existed in 2018. I mean, VHS in general, but VHS pornos, come on guys. You gonna pick any of it up when you left? Really? You just left it there for me to find? Anyway, the place used to be a liquor store, and this was the final shot in the heart for me. Everything seemed good. We would just need to build one more bathroom. After that, I think they even had... Did they have a grease trap? No, but they had some kind of a space where it would have made it immensely cheaper and easier to just install one in. Basically, most things were ready to go. It was a nice visible spot. It was not directly downtown Arlington Heights, but it was close enough to it. And so that's where I got the piece of news from Arlington Heights that this was a special place. It was what was known as a planned unit development. At the time, I did not know what that was, and apparently, and I don't know why this is the case, but neither did the city, because I could not find out from them what a planned unit development meant. I had to find out from a friend of mine who owns his own business as well. What it basically means is that the building could either be part of a business or a residence. This was essentially just a giant box with a basement. There were no rooms. There wasn't even a shower. How could this place be a residence? I'm pretty sure it legally couldn't, but if... Alright, so let me back up a little bit. So what I had to do was I had to begin a 14-step process to determine if I could turn that building into an official business. And I'm guessing if I wanted to make it a residence, I would have to do another 14-step process to do that. And these 14 steps were not simple steps. They were complicated, detail-oriented steps. The kicker? It would cost me $1,000, $1,000 freaking dollars, just to begin this process. And if at any point during these complicated 14 steps something goes wrong, I'll need to start over. And to start over, yeah, I'm sure you probably guessed it by now. By this point, I'm pretty sure I have already quit my job at... No, actually, I take that back. I did not quit by that point. But I was definitely working less. I had been doing less Uber and Lyft up until that point because all my focus and attention was going towards the shop. Money was starting to run out. Not in the sense of it was going to be completely out, but it was starting to run out to the point where to finish up things like the T-bar, the remaining furniture, any other construction that needed to be done, I was going to not have enough to make this happen and pay the workers when it came time to pay the workers. I was starting to hit that point. And after a certain point, after a certain amount of back and forth of trying to figure something out, I had to throw my hands up in the air and say, I'm done. I can't make this work. What can I do? I can't pay this money to begin this utterly idiotic process to open up this business by a bunch of bureaucrats that nobody in this town even knows exists, that make up arbitrary rules that people would not care about. That's the funny thing about these Northwest suburbs. Nobody knows the name of their mayor or the name of anybody who actually runs the city. And I use the word runs very loosely here. They're doing their own thing, minding their own business, and just helping build this place out from the inside out, from where they are, building things out. The city is just kind of there to, I guess, make life difficult for everybody else. Even if it came to the point where they could have made some money from something like a business. So I was done. And the feeling I had when I came to the realization that this tea shop was not going to happen, at this point we were, 6 months in, 7 months in, the realization was utterly devastating. I think my lowest point, I don't know if it came here or sometime later, but I remember it was something like 1 a.m. at night. I went downstairs to my living room, and I had one of those classic cliche scenes of just head in my hands, down on my lap, began to just cry, just saying it's all over. There is nothing I can do at this point. I can't sell the furniture back. I can't sell the merchandise back. There is no way I would be able to sell all of it and keep doing that until I can pay off both the entire loan and the interest that was coming up. The basic deal was I was not have to pay any interest until 1 year after I got it all, and then whatever was left I would need to pay interest on. Not whatever was left, but so let's say the loan, it wasn't $1 million, but let's say it was $1 million. The deal was no interest for a year, but after that year, if I have not paid off any of it, was it like 20% of that $1 million? So what was it? $200,000, right? Yeah, $200,000 in interest. Again, not that extreme, just using simple, straightforward math numbers to get the idea across, but it was basically like that. And even though my shop was seeing a giant boon from all of the advertising that was going on, it was not going to be enough. I did some back-of-the-napkin math calculations. The rate of selling we're doing right now, what it would take to be able to pay all this off within another 5-6 months. It was not going to happen. I was crushed. Basically just a dead man walking with his eyes open who... It all kind of blend. The next few months were just a blend. I probably could not differentiate one month from another for a while. I would have to say the thing that probably kept me going was not any sense of hope. It was not any I believe in my friends, the power of the cards. There was no cliche little saying like that was keeping me going. I actually probably owe it to the karate training I had done before. I already forgot if I mentioned it either in this podcast or a previous one, but my previous dream of being a martial artist broke my arm snap back in 2012, but I was downright obsessed with becoming the best, just ever. One of those type of people. I wanted to be so good that nobody questioned who was the best martial artist who has ever actually lived. I had that type of arrogant ego with what I wanted to do. And because of the training I went through, there's a concept that's talked about definitely in different practices, but the way I'm going to describe it as is the unconscious punch, where after we repeat a punch over and over and over again so many times, just punch after punch after punch, punching the air, punching the punching bag, punching the pads, punching a person, whatever it might be, you developed it to such a point that your body will do it before you even realize you're going to do it. A lot like, you see this sometimes with people who are in matches, they say they blocked a punch without even realizing they were being punched at. Their body just moved on its own. That basic concept. Ultra Instinct, there we go. Rounding it back to anime. The Ultra Instinct punch. Because I developed that concept of the unconscious punch, but not in terms of actual just basic punching, but in terms of keeping going, constantly training, constantly pushing forward, even though I felt there was absolutely no hope whatsoever, and any math I tried to do told me there was no hope whatsoever, even though I was so neck deep in depression and self-loathing, because it wasn't just me I let down, it was everybody else around me that I let down. The friends who were going to help me, the people who have been waiting. Believe it or not, that shit weighs on you. I might not mention it as much on the Facebook page, but trust me, I felt like I really let people down. And it was like a knife in the... I'm actually getting that feeling right now of that knife in the gut of where you fucked up so badly that you don't know what you can do. But despite that level of pure desperation, I kept moving forward. Even as I was telling myself there's no hope, I kept working. Even as I told myself I need to sell the store, I kept working on the store as if it was my store. On and on I went, developing ideas, developing plans. For some reason, working on the opening of the store, even though I said the store is not going to open. Nonsensical crap like that. I just kept going. And certain things evolved. I bought that lovely little spinny thing with the money that I take to conventions. If you've ever seen this convention, you know what I'm talking about, where I put all my tea in. I purchased that, which made convention going much, much easier and much, much simpler. Oh, that was a good buy. It was expensive, really expensive, but it was worth it. Because of that, actually not because of that, I already done a few, but I began to expand how many conventions I went to, including anime conventions. I knew I was going to have a market at tea conventions. I was still kind of iffy with anime conventions. Would people really want to buy tea at an anime con? The answer is yes. Yes, they would. Most of the conventions I've gone to, except for, if I keep it purely anime conventions and not comic book / random generic conventions, every anime convention except one has been a giant success. And the one that wasn't a giant success, well, it was more the fault of the organizers, not on me or the product. I'm not sure how to explain it best for people to understand. I'll do it like this. Let's say the ideal number of con goers to vendor booths is 10 to 1, just making up numbers to prove the point. Ideally is 10 to 1. Most people can do 12 to 1, 13, 14 to 1, maybe 15 to 1. It was kind of iffy. This place went like 50 to 1. Actually, it should be the other way around. Basically, for all of the booths they had enough vendors for like a 50,000 person anime convention. It was like a 3,000 person anime convention. Nobody made any money. It was too diluted. I compared the amount of money I had to other people, and it was not really all that bad. So, but the way I see it, unless I make at least twice what the booth cost, it was not worth it. I've only had 3 occasions like that. The anime convention I just mentioned, a comic book convention, that was the first year here, $600 for the booth, barely brought in any people, shame on them. And then some convention, not a convention, but a marketplace at a private high school, a private Catholic high school. I'm gonna be mean, but I don't care. It was run by those type of moms who only live to drink wine. And it seemed like they only organized the entire event just so they can drink wine while dancing around and doing other stupid stuff. some of the vendors got together afterwards, and some of them who do marketplaces on the regular, because that was the first marketplace I went to, they said that this was utterly terrible. This was unacceptable. So yeah, there's never been a case where I felt it was my product that was doing bad. Again, doing a lot of anime conventions, doing a lot of stuff to save money, including sleeping in my car at conventions, which, I'm not gonna lie, is not as bad as it initially sounds. I was originally against the idea because I felt like I was gonna get a terrible night's sleep, I was gonna have some kind of crick in my neck, I was gonna be tired and cranky, it was gonna be awful. But then when I was forced into that so I can save money on hotel rooms and whatnot, it turns out that, hey, it's not too bad. I bought myself these little shower wipes that you buy for camping. To basically wipe myself down every morning, brush my teeth in the bathrooms, and yeah. I did several other things to save on money, raise capital, etc. Basically just trying to do what I can, whatever that something may have been. Okay, so here I am about a year after I recorded the last bits you heard, finally putting everything together to make the Teacast, and I found out the last part of the file is corrupted. So I gotta re-record it, and you know what? It's gonna have the same tone as I originally recorded, but even more of what it was going to be. You'll see what I mean as I go along. So the journey up until this point has been sad, depressing, all of these bad things happening, the loss of hope, on and on about all the bad stuff. But as you notice, I am still here. Our 5-year anniversary is coming up, and I get to deal with the daunting task of figuring out what I can do to celebrate 5 whole years. It is currently May, still with the COVID-19 lockdown, and last month was our best non-convention month ever. And this was during the pandemic. So, yeah, things are still going plenty strong. Does this mean we'll get to finally have that physical store this upcoming summer? No, not yet. Unless some nice things happen, which I'm doing what I can to make them happen. It's one of those things, I forgot who said it or what I read it. Somebody finally said something to make me understand the concept of luck is a skill. Let's put it like this, I am laying out a minefield as wide as I can, just waiting for the right person, or company, or entity, or whatever it might be, to step on one of those financial landmines. To notice me, and let things take off. Every single year, every single month, we are seeing increased growth. And even during the nationwide lockdown where things are practically in a state of depression, I get my best non-convention month ever. That's good things, I just need the right person to notice, and then we can start talking. My business sense and skill in general business economic stuff just keeps expanding and increasing. It's to the point where when I recorded that stuff last year, I had an idea in my mind that getting into the physical store and making things run properly with the scheduling and hiring the right people and all the other little stuff was going to be an impossible just mountain of chaos that I would have to swim through and eventually come out well on the other side. Or something like that. That was a pretty dumb way of describing it. But anyway, I feel a lot more confident now that I will be able to handle all of these little things. I've been consistently working on the concept of, okay, when the store opens, how will things work? And obviously nothing is set in stone. Things are going to be flexible. Like right now, I have an idea of what I want my hours to be, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I get the scheduling set up, so I know how I'm going to schedule people, how many people I'm going to need, what times I will be there, but that is all subject to change. If nobody comes in until 8 a.m. to pick up some tea, then I'm going to just move right on along, open up at 7, 8 a.m., we'll see. If people keep coming in late, I'll stay open until 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever it ends up being. It'll all depend on how the customers flow. But I am at that lovely little point where I have a lot of stuff already set in place, and I'm flexible enough that I can change on the fly if need be. My next couple of videos from the Dragon's Teacast will be going into more detail about what exactly I have planned, how the store will work, at least in the ideal scenario. Who knows what type of building I'll be able to find. The finances that are going to be required. I can show everybody how much money it's going to cost to open all of this up. Go down the list of every single thing I want to get. How much it's going to cost. The overall environment I'm looking for this Teashop. There's a question I was asked not too long ago actually of, is this going to be more anime feel or more tea feel? The answer may surprise you. I'll go over potential pitfalls, how I plan to handle them, and all manner of other little silly shenanigans as both you and me and anybody else listening will go down this journey together. I also want this to be a nice little, I guess vlog is one way of putting it, but I want to be able to document this journey of getting this tea store open, to give people a bit more of a background idea of what really goes on behind the scenes of trying to get a physical store opened, and just general business shenanigans. But yeah, now you guys have an idea of what went on in the background with trying to get the physical store open the first time around, what went wrong, and just all of the crazy stuff that went on. Here's hoping the second time around will be a smooth ride, but with things like this, it's never a smooth ride. I'm gonna keep this a little bit shorter, just end the video as it is, because I want to get to work on the next part of the Teacast, which is talking about the physical store and what I want to be in it. Stay tuned, and this will hopefully be up a lot sooner than I said this Teacast would be. See you next time.